We've all heard the warning: sit in front of a screen for too long and it'll turn your brain to mush. This idea is built on the premise that media acts as a plug-in drug. It operates on the baseline assumption that audiences are helpless sponges, soaking up whatever broadcasts come our way, without any ability to fight back. Communication scholars refer to this specific effect as narcosis. The theory argues that exposing an audience to a massive, continuous flood of information doesn't empower them. Instead, the sheer volume distracts people from real-world problems and paralyzes their ability to act on them. Consider the modern 24/7 news cycle. When a crisis breaks, you get flooded with updates from television, radio, newspapers, and social feeds all at once. Getting data from so many conflicting sources creates confusion. The audience becomes overwhelmed, baffled about what to do, and ultimately numb to the event. Under this functionalist view, the media holds all the structural power. The broadcast dictates the terms, and the individual viewer is left powerless to enact change. But the influence of the screen goes beyond temporary paralysis. Cultivation theory suggests that long-term exposure to television shapes our baseline worldview far more than any single news bulletin ever could. This happens through a process called enculturation. Day after day, the medium socializes viewers into standardized roles and behaviors, bypassing conscious awareness. By consistently arousing emotions like fear and anxiety, programmers build up subjective expectations. Over time, these daily emotional triggers construct a perceived reality for the audience that might have very little to do with actual events. This diagram shows how that discrepancy plays out. We have one circle for actual reality and another for media reality. As television exposure continues, the media-constructed version grows larger and begins to overshadow physical facts. For groups of people who share similar demographics and heavy viewing habits, this media reality can completely override their original perspective. They begin to define the world through the lens of the broadcast. If narcosis paralyzes our physical ability to act, cultivation theory implies that our very perception of truth is being slowly programmed by external forces. Communication research eventually hit a turning point that flipped this narrative. Scholars stopped asking what media does to people and instead started asking exactly what people deliberately do with their media. It turns out audiences actually hold the control. This perspective is driven by uses and gratifications theory. It provides an empirical framework proving that viewers are not passive consumers. Instead, we deliberately select our own media diets to satisfy specific personal needs. This breakdown highlights the psychological drivers behind our screen time. First, we seek to be informed. Second, we look for characters to identify with. Third, entertainment. The final two drivers are social interaction and the need to escape from daily life. This makes our relationship with the screen transactional. We aren't being spoon-fed, we are hiring specific content to perform a specific psychological job. That actively defies the plug-in drug model. Media channels have to aggressively compete against each other and against offline activities to win your attention and provide your desired gratification. Viewers are not victims of an algorithm. They are motivated consumers executing their own psychological agendas. Selection is only the first step. Active audiences also construct robust cognitive defenses to protect their existing beliefs from conflicting information. According to reinforcement theory, people naturally seek out and remember broadcasts that provide cognitive support for what they already think. We filter the noise to find the voices that agree with us. The evolutionary driver here is simple. Humans hate being wrong. We feel intense psychological discomfort when our deep-seated attitudes are challenged, so we curate our media to avoid that feeling. When forced to face opposing ideas, inoculation theory explains how we keep our attitudes intact. Mild exposure to persuasion attempts actually helps us resist persuasion later. When encountering a weak counterargument, a vulnerability is highlighted. This minor threat sparks a defense, causing the individual to actively generate reasons they are right. Surviving these weak attacks prepares the mind, equipping them to repel much stronger arguments down the line. Far from being easily manipulated, audiences operate as highly resistant psychological fortresses. We actively filter out threats and selectively open the gates only when reinforcements arrive. The reality of how media affects us sits between total manipulation and total control. Meaning is formed through a continuous two-way negotiation between the broadcast text and the person watching it. How any single piece of content is decoded depends on the user. Your personal motivation, past experiences, and attitude dictate whether a message lands as intended or gets reinterpreted entirely. There is, however, one necessary caveat. As media theorist Marshall McLuhan famously observed, the medium is the message. McLuhan argued that the specific content we choose matters less than the technology delivering it. The screens themselves possess the power to restructure human civilization and change how we live and think. We see this structural shift clearly when new technology arrives. The introduction of television in Indian cities caused a distinct physical change in eating, sleeping, and socializing habits, regardless of the program. While the technology sets the environment and restructures our daily routines, the individual still holds the power to navigate within it. So the next time you scroll through a feed, know that you aren't being hypnotized. You are actively negotiating a vast landscape, sorting through the noise to find the exact psychological gratification you need.